Thank you, Prajwal. Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya namaha. Sudhismritipurananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavatpadam shankaram lokashankaram. So we are now entering the last phase of our discussion of Shankaracharya's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and later we will take up the 4 important statements called Mahavakyas from 4 Upanishads, which represent 4 Vedic traditions. Now, any discussion on the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita will not be complete without some reference to Shankara's commentary on the 16th mantra, 16th verse of the 2nd chapter. Nasudo vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataka, ubayo ravidushtu andastu anayoho tattu darshipihi. It is this commentary on this particular verse is very significant because it deals with one of the most fundamental problems of philosophy. Philosophy itself is defined as a search and a quest for truth. What is real? What is unreal? These are the basic questions in any philosophical discussion. In fact, that's what is being discussed in the commentary on this particular verse, the 16th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Basically, it tells you that the absolute reality can never be non-existent. The existence can never be non-existent. And non-existent can never be existent. So this is the basic truth. And it says that those who have reached a proper understanding of this basic principle, they call Tattwamayananda, means those who have realized, not just believed or studied or intellectually analyzed, but those who have actually realized the truth behind what is real and what is unreal, they have reached the ultimate goal. And this has been discussed, and a proper decision and conclusion has been reached by Tattvadarshi, means by those who have realized the supreme truth. This is the simple meaning of this verse. Now, it opens many, many different questions. What is real? What is unreal? So, 2 words are used here in this verse, Sat and its opposite, Asat. Sat, if you consult any dictionary, Moni Williams or Aptis, any dictionary you find, Sat is often defined as the existent or existence. And Asat is its opposite. This is very simple. But Vedanta, the word Sat or existence with E capital has got a profound significance. What it implies is something that is existing all the time, that has existed all the time, and that will continue to exist all the time. It's called Trikala Abhadhita, remaining without being affected, remaining the same, without any change, without being affected by the vagaries of time. Something is called Shatvikara Atita, means 6 changes. Actually, this has been discussed in some of the earlier works on Indian spiritual philosophical tradition. It has been discussed by Durgacharya in his commentary on Niruktam, and by Niruktam it belongs to around 8th century BC. It's the first attempt at, let's say, lexicography, any attempt to understand and define the meaning of word. For the first time, this was done in the Nirukta tradition. Of course, there was a earlier work called Nighantu, and Nirukta came later by Yaska. Between 6th and 9th century BC, we don't know the exact time, but somewhere between 6th and 9th century BC before Christ. And also in some of the books of the well-known Mimamsa philosopher, Kumarila Bhatta, in Slokavartika and other books, also this has been discussed. What is called Shad Vikara Atita. Vikara means change. Shad means 6. Atita means going beyond, transcending. So what are these 6 changes? Birth, existence, growth, evolution, decay, and death. These are the 6 changes. Jayade, asti, varthade, viparinamade, apakshiyade, vinashyati in Sanskrit language, the old definition. What it means is something that comes into existence. It is a change. And Vedanta tells you, this particular commentary tells you that anything that remains unchanged, without any change, is real with the capital letter R, real. Now, anything that comes into existence is unreal in Vedanta. Anything that doesn't come into existence is real. How does it become? It does not come into existence because it doesn't have to come into existence. It has always existed. So existence itself, or being born in this context, born, birth itself signifies a change from a state of empirical non-existence into a state of empirical existence. Again, empirical, not in the absolute sense. So Brahman or Atman never comes into existence. Ajo nitya shasutoyam burano na hanyade hanyamane sharire. Aja, the word used in the Gita itself, in fact, in the same chapter. Aja means unborn. Unborn doesn't mean that something that does not exist. That's what it means in Western philosophy or in modern science, in empirical science. Unborn is something that does not exist. In Vedanta, unborn means something that always exists. Again, it doesn't go through any of these other 5 changes. So birth, existence, growth, like we know, different parts of the physical body will grow after your birth, and evolve. Let's say a unit of change from, let's say, infancy to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, youth to middle age, middle age to old age, and so on. That evolution, it doesn't happen to Atman. Atman is only reality. Atman is only absolute reality. So it doesn't come into, it's not born. In that sense, it doesn't go through the change of coming from a state of non-existence empirically into a state of empirical existence. It doesn't exist like in that sense. It doesn't grow, it doesn't evolve, it doesn't decay, it doesn't die, and it doesn't go through any of these 6 changes which constitute the wheel of samsara according to Buddha. Pratitya Samutpada, which is one of the vital points of Buddhist philosophy, both in Hinayana and also Mahayana, because it belongs to the original teachings of Buddha found in the Tripitakas, which existed long before the other 4 schools of in Buddhist philosophy came into existence. You know, Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas, which belong to Hinayana, and Vijnanavada and Shunyavada, which belong to Mahayana. So Buddha also taught this Pratitya Samutpada, which actually defines the transmigratory cycle of law of karma and reincarnation, and also rebirth and so on. So the first condition for defining something as real with the capital letter R is it should be existing all the time. Therefore, it is not born. It is not coming to existence. It doesn't grow. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't decay. It doesn't die. It doesn't disappear, so that it doesn't have to come into existence again. So jayade, asti, vardhate, viparinamade, apakshiyade, vinashyati. This is one criterion. The second criterion is, again, it should remain the same. Trikala abadhita, trikala means three times points, but time point means past, present, and future. It is not affected by the changes going through this past, present, and future. Again, it is perceived as the same in the triple levels of human consciousness called waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. Means Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Jagrat means waking state, dream, and deep sleep. You often find that something that we saw in the waking state, we again may go through the same experience when we are sleeping. It's called dream. And neither waking state objects nor dream state objects exist in deep sleep called Sushupti. So there's a change with regard to the objects, the seen, the perceived, what you call drishyas. When you analyze things, experiences from in the waking state, Jagrat state, Swapna state, and Sushupti state, dream and dreamless or deep sleep states. Atman remains the same. You can see, for example, it takes 6 hours for one to travel from San Francisco to New York during waking state. But in dream state, it takes only split second, because traveling also takes place at the mental level. It's called Sukshma, Sutaijasa. And in deep sleep, nothing can be experienced. So what it means is there is change with regard to Kala, Desha, with time and also space, place. You go back, you go into sleep in India, and you dream that you are in another country, and again, when you wake up, you are again back to India. So there is change with regard to place, time. In dream, it takes only split seconds to experience things, and immediately they disappear in dream. But in waking state, where mind and senses are involved, because sthula or gross experiences, it may take longer time. In other words, there is a difference with regard to our experiences in waking state, in dream state, and in deep sleep state. So whatever we see in waking state is, from the Vedantic perspective, unreal. This is an important thing to remember. So Vedanta tells you, because you saw something with your eyes and mind, when you're walking the street, you saw a tree, that for the simple reason that you saw the tree standing on the road, it shows that the tree is unreal. But one may laugh at it. But I'm going to the subject. It's unreal. So the word unreal is implied by this Sanskrit word asat. Now the question arises, what's the meaning of asat here? Asat is not absolute non-existence. Asat is something that exists for some time, but doesn't exist for all time. The tree is asat. It doesn't mean that you did not see the tree. It only means that the tree will not be there after 1,000 years. And the tree was not there 1,000 years ago. So anything that undergoes change in time, in place, is asat. So the meaning of asat here in this verse, see, nasodo vidyate bhavo. What it means is, asataha bhavaha na vidyate. Means, for the asat, for the unreal, there is no existence. So unreal, we again U capital. Unreal here means not absolute non-existence, but just something that is not absolutely real. So absolute the absolute reality is that which exists all the time without any change in the past, present, and future, in waking, dream, and deep sleep states. Its opposite, asat, here means unreal. That's a word used here in this particular verse. Unreal does not mean something that you don't see before you. It only means something that you see in front of you, but you don't see all the time. For example, clay is real, relatively speaking, but clay pot is unreal. What does it mean? The clay pot is nothing but clay coming to existence in the form of a particular vessel, a clay pot. The clay pot cannot exist without the clay, but clay can certainly exist without clay pot. Clay can be anything. It can be in the form of a jar. It can be in the form of a huge vessel. Plate, clay plate. Again, gold is real, but golden ornaments are unreal. Why? We may wear golden ornaments, but then the golden ornaments will change. Again, a goldsmith can turn a ring into a necklace. He can change a ring into a bangle. All these can happen, but gold remains the same. Again, ocean is real. Waves are unreal. Because waves come into existence, waves disappear. So waves are unreal. Again, always we should remember one terrible misunderstanding about Advaita is, Advaita tells you that this world is unreal, which means this world doesn't exist, which means I'm not talking to you. This kind of ridiculous, laughable misinterpretation of Advaita has caused a lot of misunderstanding. So we should also, Sapta Anubhavati, which is a very well-known book. So actually, it actually brings out 7 possible objections, untenables, from the Ramanuja school of philosophy about Advaita. So the misunderstandings about Advaita are quite have a long history. So Advaita doesn't tell you that this world in front of us does not exist. It only tells you that it is asat, which means it is mithya. So another word, in fact, the true meaning of the word asat in this particular verse, 60th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Gita, the true meaning is mithya. Mithya is something that we experience to begin with, and we maybe wrongly think it is absolutely real, but later when we use epistemological tools or our own understanding, we recognize that it is not real in the absolute sense, but it is just something that comes and goes. Now, this Vedanta philosophy, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, this philosophy has a tremendous ethical and psychological significance. If we can actually understand this fact, that's why you know, anayoho antaha tattvadarshibhihi. The mean antaha means nirnayaka, means exact decision understanding. The real relationship or difference between sat and asat, the absolute reality and mithya, has been properly understood and recognized by tattvadarshibhihi, by great philosophers. It means if we can do that, then actually there need not be any problem in our own personal life or even in this world. We have medical crisis, financial crisis, any situation, we will address the problem, we'll work hard to solve the problem, we'll be efficiently working to resolve the crisis. At the same time, we won't lose sleep over that. That's a psychological significance of this idea. This is a very famous commentary, one of the most celebrated, though certainly not the most extensive, one of the most celebrated part of Shankara's commentary on this one, on this Gita Bhashya. So Sat means Paramarthika Satta, absolute reality, which remains the same without any change, the past, present, and future. And Asat means something that we may think to be real, to be absolutely real, but later recognize as we grow spiritually, we may recognize that it is not absolutely real, it is only relative, it is mithya. This is the idea behind. So again, you have to remember, in that there's one of the major areas of demarcation, the line of demarcation between Western thought and this Vedanta metaphysics. In Western thought, whatever you perceive using the five senses of perception and mind is the reality. And in Vedanta, whatever you perceive with your mind and senses, mana and indriyani, panchajnana indriyani, whatever we perceive with our eyes and mind, we see things, we using ears, the sense of hearing, and mind, we hear things, the sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of taste, all these five senses of perception and mind together. Whatever we perceive like this, for the simple reason, because you have perceived something at the sensory level, Vedanta tells you that it is not absolutely real, because absolute reality can never be perceived by the senses and mind. The absolute reality can never be perceived by the senses and mind. Only Kant reached some kind of an approximate level towards this in his concept of Naumann in the Critique of Pure Reason. But that's again, it did not become a tradition, but in Vedantic tradition, this idea has been explored and defined and explained by innumerable scholars belonging to both Vivarana Prasthana and Bhamadi Prasthana. So I shall try to, because it's part of a traditional discussion, so I want to refer to that. In Vedantic tradition, after Shankaracharya's passing away, there were three metaphysical traditions that emerged. One tradition was called Bhamadi Prasthana, means based on, originally it was based on a well-known Tiga, a well-known commentary on Shankaracharya's Brahma Sutra, a part of it, written by Vajaspati Misra, and the book was called Bhamati Tiga. So a number of scholars emerged who followed Vajaspati Misra's views. And the great Appaya Dikshita and this Amalananda, so Vedanta Kalpadaru, Parimala, Parimala Prameya Sangraha. So all this entire Bhamadi Prasthana was enriched by a number of scholars who followed Vajaspati. It's called Bhamadi school. The second is called Vivarana school. Vivarana school, originally it began with Padmapada, Shankaracharya's own disciple, who wrote Panchapadika. And it was again elaborated by Panchapadika Vivarana by Prakashatmayadi. And Prakashatmayadi was followed by Panchapadika Vivarana Prameya Sangraha by Vidyaranya. And that tradition continued. A third tradition was started by Sureshwara, who wrote Brihadaranya Upanishad Bhashya Vartikam. And it's called Abhasavada in a way it is called, but it more or less it had many similarities with the Vivarana Prasthana. So of course these two important schools, Bhamadi and Vivarana schools, are very famous. So in these traditions, there were a number of attempts to define and redefine the meaning of mithya. It's a very profound concept. The main problem is, unless you study from a teacher, one may not get a full and correct understanding of the implications of mithyatvam. It is more or less true in all empirical sciences. Unless you go to medical school and study medicine under a medical professional, you can't practice medicine, and no one will dare to put your life in your hands for a surgery unless you study surgery from another surgeon. And also you find that's true of engineering, any sciences. So there are certain intricate points which almost are very similar to passwords in computers. Unless you have the right password, the machine will not open, and you have no access to it. That is true in Vedanta also. So true implications, the real implications of the meaning of Sat Asat, Brahma Satyam, Mithya, Satyam and Mithya. When these ideas are not very clear, we may end up laughing at the entire Advaita metaphysics as something totally ridiculous. If somebody tells you this world is unreal, for any common person, it borders with insanity. The world in which we are living, and if you say it is unreal, it is actually insanity from a common sense point of view. Vedanta doesn't say that the world is not existing. It only says the world as such that we see in front of us will not exist in the same condition, maybe after 1,000 years, after 1,000,000 years, maybe after 1,000,000,000 years, if you stretch the time further. So the world is Jagat is Mithya, means only relatively real. And that's the true meaning of Asat in this particular mantra. So I shall read the commentary. It becomes very clear. Na sodo vidyate bhavo, na abhavo vidyate sadaka, ubayorabi dustvendaka, tu anayoho tattvadarshibhi, asataha bhavaha na vidyate, sataha abhavaha na vidyate. Asat, it cannot have ultimate absolute existence. And absolute existence cannot have any relativity or mithyatvam. So, anayoho bhayoho abhi antaha tu tattvadarshibhi drishtaha. The great philosophers have discovered and realized this fundamental truth, this idea behind. No, Shankaracharya's commentary is very extensive, but I have already given a gist of the arguments. There is an interesting debate on this subject in the commentary itself. Nasataka vidyamanasya siddhoshnadihi sakaranasya na vidyate nasti bhavo bhavanam astida nahi siddhoshnadi sakaranam pramanaihi nirupimanam vastu sambhavati vikaro hi saha vikarascha vibijarati yatha ghadadi samsthanam chakshusha nirupyamanam mrit vitiregena anupalabdhehi asat tatha sarvo vikaraha karana vitiregena anupalabdhehi asan Janma pradham cha abhyam pragurdham cha anupalabdhehi. So this I shall make it clear. What it says is, for example, nahi sidoshnadi sakaranam pramanehi nirupyamanam vastu sambhavati. For example, when you see this heat and cold, the dvandas mean the dual points. When we actually analyze something affected by the fluctuations in heat and cold, you find the reality itself is above both. So, and this difference is what you call certain things are perceived and we misunderstand them to be as real without understanding that they are always changing. Every moment they are changing. This universe also is changing every day, every moment. The world was not what it is now 1,000,000 years ago. And then there's an important sakaran pramanaihi nirupyamanam vastu sambhavati. So you find when you use your own tools of knowledge, pramana means epistemological tools, means direct perception, inference, analogy, verbal testimony, presumption, negation, and so on, pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, sabda, arthavati, anupalabdhi. 6 pramanas are recognized by Vedanta in 6 pramanas. So when you use your own intelligence and also your own tools of knowledge, tools of theory of knowledge, epistemology, then you realize that actually they do not have any real existence. Vikaraha hisaha, it's only change. And vikarascha vibhijarati. What is vikara? Vikara is nothing. Change. Change is always continuing. Change deviates from one thing to another. Change means deviation from one state to another state. Yatha gadadi samsthanam chakshusra nirupyamanam mritvidireka upalabdhehi. For example, a pot, a clay pot is sitting in front of us. Gadadi samsthanam, a compound entity made of clay, it is sitting in front of us. Nirupyamanam, you may break it to test whether it has got any existence independent of clay out of which it is made. Then you realize, no, it is only clay, nothing else. You realize that. Apart from the existence of clay, it has no other entity or existence. Asatatha sarvo vikara. So all changes signify asat, mithya. That's a real meaning here. Vikaraha, karana vidirigena anubhlabdhehi asan. So suppose you take a clay pot. In the particular context, the effect, what is karyam in Sanskrit, effect. Effect is the clay pot, the shape of the clay pot, the name you give it. If you got a nama, rupa. Nama means the name, because you call clay with the word clay. When it becomes some kind of a vessel taking a shape, then you give it a different name, and the name you give it is a clay pot. So now, yeah, this clay pot, if you remove all the clay from the clay pot, the clay pot cannot exist. If you remove all the gold from a golden ring, the ring cannot exist. Jadma pradhum sabhyam pragudham cha anubhalabdhehi. So before the pot maker made the clay pot from clay, the clay pot did not exist. And again, once it is broken, then also the clay pot doesn't exist. But the clay always existed before it became the clay pot, and will continue to exist before it is destroyed. The clay pot itself, the shape and name are gone. It goes back to clay. So also golden rings, so also waves in the ocean. Waves are not unreal in the absolute sense, because you can find, you heard of these waves. You go to Indonesia, where people suffer, or Japan, where thousands of people suffer. Lots of property and animals are destroyed. The whole entire cities disappeared due to these huge waves, tsunami waves, 50 feet, 60 feet. And you tell them the waves are unreal, they will put in some kind of an institution where you may not be inclined to live for a long time. So the point is, at that time, you should remember when Vedanta tells you that the waves are asat, unreal, it only means it is non-absolute in the sense. This is a very important point. This particular commentary has been discussed in innumerable vakyarthas. Vakyartha means this long discussion among scholars in Sanskrit language. It's been discussed for the last 200 years, this particular section. 16th verse, 2nd chapter of the Gita, which is the most profound discussion of what is real and what is unreal in Vedanta philosophy. It has been defined. So that's an important thing. Now here's something interesting, and this is the great humor and also the entertainment that you get in the Shankaracharya's works. Here somebody has got an objection to ask. Objection in Sanskrit I'm reading. Murdadi karanasya tat karanasya cha tat karana vitirekena anubhalabdhehi asatvam tat asatve cha sarva abhava prasanga idi ched. One question. What is the question? All right, you said that that this pot, clay pot, cannot exist independent of clay. Similarly, waves cannot exist independent of ocean. The golden ring, golden bangles cannot exist independent of gold. So karana or cause just appears to have become effect. Why do we call it appearance? Because you melt all the gold in the golden ring, it goes back to gold. You break the clay pot, it goes back to clay. And after some time, this tsunami waves disappear, it becomes calm and quiet ocean. So ocean can exist without waves, but waves cannot exist without ocean. Golden ring cannot exist without gold. Gold can exist without golden ring. It can be in any other form. Again, this clay can exist without clay pot. It can be in any other a heap of clay. It doesn't have any particular name and form, only clay. It can become clay pot, jar, whatever you want. So the clay can exist. Clay is the cause. Clay pot is the effect. Gold is the cause. Golden ring is the effect. Called karya. So cause is called karanam and effect is called karyam. Ocean is the cause, karanam. Waves are the effect, karyam. So effect can exist without cause. Sorry, effect cannot exist without cause. Cause can certainly and will exist without effect. So here is an important point, remember. Now, okay, we agree with you. This is the, this objection actually comes from the school of Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna was a well-known dialectician in the Mahayana tradition. He is the exponent of Sunyavada. His most important book is called, it's called Madhyamika Karika Moola Madhyama Shastram. It's two titles, same book. Very famous dialectical work, maybe most astounding dialectical work in the Bauddha tradition. Madhyamika Karika. So they have an objection to put forward before Shankara. Shankara himself is changing side and putting an objection to drive home his idea further. He says, Tat asatvecha sarva abhava prasanga iti ched. Now, in that case, you have to admit that nothing exists in this world. It's like Sunyavada, Nagarjuna. It becomes our philosophy. So Buddhist philosophers tell you. So, I can explain this further. Suppose you say, the Nagarjuna of the argument or the Buddhist argument is this. Suppose you say, a clay pot is the effect, karyam. A clay is the karanam, the cause. The clay pot cannot exist without clay. The effect cannot exist without cause. Then you have to admit this clay itself should be an effect of something else. The clay itself is an effect of something else. So that something else exists and clay itself should be non-existent. And that's something from which clay comes. That also can be, that also may be an effect of something, and its cause may be real. It says golden ring is unreal, you say, because golden ring is an effect and gold is real. What about gold? Gold also is an effect of something else, some process, some chemical process, whatever be going on within the earth. That's why golden ore is extracted. So that's the real cause of gold. In that, gold also becomes unreal because it is an effect of the golden ore or something. And that itself could be at the cause of some other chemical changes happening below the earth. So like that, this lineage of tracing the cause and effect of everything goes further and further backward. Finally, you have to admit that everything in this world is caused by something else. So everything is unreal. So that means you have to agree with us. This is the argument coming forward, put before Advaitins. Now, when this problem arises, the commentator Shankaracharya says, no, your argument is not acceptable. Why? Na sarvatra buddhi dvayo balabdhehi sadbuddhi asadbuddhi iti. No, it cannot be. So in everything in this world, there are two types of perceptions of consciousness. One is existence, and also uh, that existence linked to some object. This become clear. Yad vishaya buddhi na vibhijarati tat sad. Yad vishaya buddhi vibhijarati tat asat idi sadasat vibhage buddhi tantre sthide sarvatra dve buddhi sarvaihi vilabhyate samanadhikaranye. So as I try to explain this, Nilotpalam, na Nilotpalavat, san Ghadaha, san Pada, san Hasti idi evam sarvatra. Na Nilotpalavat. So there is a little bit of the rules of conjunction, it is called the Karmadharya Samasa. I will explain now. Now the point is, there are two types of awareness or consciousness that come in our mind. For example, when we say a blue lotus, blue is an adjective. It say, or a modifier, you may call it. And it says something about lotus. So here, the word blue is only trying to say something about the quality of the lotus. That is one way of putting it. But here, the sat, asat words are used in different context. So his son Khataka, son Pataka, etc. Son Hasti. Now, son Pataka means the cloth exists. San Ghadaga means the pot exists. Now, here, exists or existence aspect of this expression is unchanging. It may be added to anything. So that's why San Pataka, San Khataka, San Hasti, all these examples are given here. Samanadhikarana mean two words implying the same thing. That's it. When the relationship between two words used in the same context is called Samanadhikarana. That is the expression here called Aike Samanadhikarana. What it means is, when you use the word cloth exists, pot exists, elephant exists, San Hasti. Here the exists or existence aspect of this expression remains the same. But then pot, elephant, cloth, all these go on changing. Here, what is subject to changes is asat, means unreal, means mithya. Remember, we have to always remember, here the meaning of asat or non-existence always implies not absolute non-existence, but something that exists only in a relative sense. This world, the galaxies, the stars, and moons, and suns, oceans, all these belong to this world. These are all asat. Why? Because they do not exist in the same manner for billions of years. Because they came into existence in this present shape once upon a time in the past, and they existed in different ways in the present, and in future they will exist in some other ways. There is a change that is happening to them. That's why, Yad Vishaya Buddhi Vyabhijarati Tad Asat. Wherever there's a change perceived, something that doesn't remain the same fashion in the past, present, and future, which means change. That is asat. That is relative. That is mithya. That's the meaning here. So, that is the meaning of asat. So, in this context, Shankaracharya himself gives some sentences. San Padaka, San Ghadaga, San Hasti, etc. I mean, it means cloth exists, pot exists, and elephant exists. Here, pot, cloth, elephant, there's a change. but the existence aspect is remaining all the time. It's all the time. So the real meaning of Sat is the entire concept of universal reality, existence, E capital. So that's why Sat Chit Anandam. Brahman cannot be defined. But if you try to make an attempt to define Tadastha Lakshana, then approximate definition, which again not a definition, the only effort to define the non-definable Brahman is, one is Sat, means existence in the absolute sense. Because the existence aspect remains the same, unchanging. What exists, that object, may be anything, maybe billions of things in the trillions of objects in the world, can be added to the word sun, Sat, exists. But existence is always the same. That's why, now, this is the answer. Of course, this answer continues. So, when Buddhist Shunyavadins, Nagarjuna school, puts forward an objection. What is the objection? The objection is this. Again, you have to understand the objection. We should know what is being opposed here. Advaitins tell you that anything that is in the form of an effect cannot be real in relation to cause. Example, gold is real because gold is the cause of golden ring. Golden ring is unreal because golden ring cannot exist without gold. Gold certainly can always exist without the form or name and form of a golden ring. Now here the Madhyamikas or Gaudi Nagarjuna Shunyavadins, they ask the question. In that case, you have to admit that gold itself is the cause, is caused by something else. Gold is an effect, karyam. Gold is an effect. There should be a cause. This causes gold come into existence. So that should be the real thing. Gold itself cannot be real. So gold is also unreal. Then suppose you say gold, the golden ore, or something on the earth is the cause of gold. That also should be caused by something else. It should be an effect. So like that, everything in this world becomes an effect. Everything in this world is unreal. But this is the essential philosophy of Shunyavadis. So as against this, Advaitins say, no, there is one absolute universal existence. That existence aspect can be added to anything. I exist, you exist, oceans exist, the pod exists, clothes exist, elephants, and so on. All is mentioned here. The existence aspect is unchanging. And that is the reason. It is not caused by anything. It's not caused by anything. Because it cannot be caused by anything. It is neither cause nor effect. So Shunyavadins, according to Shunyavadins, everything in this world is caused by, is in the form of cause and effect. That is Praditya Samutpada. And so the commentator tells you that, no, everything in this world need not be in the form of cause and effect. There should be something behind and beyond everything, which is neither cause nor effect. So this is how the philosophy continues. I hope it's a little of an intellectual game. If we can ask questions, it may need some discussion. We will conclude Gita very soon, and then we will go to the four statements, Tattwamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, and Prajnanam Brahma, and I am Atma Brahma, the four Mahavakyas later. If in a few more sessions we may conclude Gita, you're most welcome to come out with questions.
Thank you, Maharaj. David's hand is up first.
Yeah.
Hello, Swami. I have a question. See if I can know how to phrase it. we read that consciousness is an aspect of Brahman, not of mind. And what I'm wondering is life a property of Brahman, but not of the body, of prana, or is life what we call life? Is that always presuppose birth and death, and life is from prana, but that Brahman is not actually living? We don't actually give that description to Brahman. We don't say it's we say it's Satchitananda, but is life, or what we call life, always presuppose death, or can we say that life is actually a property of Brahman also, and prana borrows it, like the mind borrows consciousness?
Now, you said something linking consciousness with Brahman. Consciousness is non-different from Brahman. Consciousness is a manifestation of Brahman, not the effect of it, not its product, not the result, manifestation of Brahman. So the way Brahman manifests in life, that is called consciousness. Consciousness is nothing but the manifestation of Brahman in all living beings. So it is something has disappeared. Can you hear?
Yes, something happened. I don't know what happened.
We can hear you though, Maharaj.
Oh, you can.
What happened is Mark by mistake shared the screen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it's okay, I think.
Yes.
You can hear?
Yes.
Yes,
we can hear.
now everything's back to normal.
Yeah, so consciousness, frequently, there is a problem in the use of language in metaphysics. But I would rather suggest that when you read books, better to read books translations by scholars who have studied these books in the original. Otherwise, especially the old Sanskrit expressions, they do have a received lineage of interpretation and meaning going for the last several centuries. So very often, when a translator tries to translate something based on another translation, frequently this problem arises. It happens even in Greek thought also, of course. So it's a very important point, remember. In Vedanta, fortunately, there is an unbroken lineage. I mentioned this earlier, like a password. For example, in this particular context, the word password means the password is the key. Then only you can get the true meaning. Just then only you can access the computer. Similarly, for example, here, the word asat is used here. Asat can have another meaning. Asat can also mean absolute non-existence. For example, the Gandharva Nagara, Sasavishana, the horns of a hare, the son of a barren woman, or the city seen in the sky. All these are also sometimes given as examples of asat in other books. So here, but that's why here in this particular context, the commentator clearly states here it means mithya. It doesn't use the word mithya here, but what he says is nothing but mithya. This is an important thing. What is mithya? Mithya is all the computer, the iPad, the mic system, the chair on which is all mithya. In the sense they do not exist in the same fashion for all times, the past, present, and future. Like that, when we use the word consciousness, frequently in many discussions, the word is used in a very loose fashion. Consciousness is sometimes equated with Brahman. There is nothing wrong in it, but the word consciousness becomes correct as an expression. Only when we use it as the awareness aspect, the manifestation of the Brahman, the divine within us in the form of awareness. That is consciousness. Chit aspect, chit. In Satchidananda use the word chit. And the existence also is related to that. Sat. So Sat and Chit are the same. Man, Ananda, the word Ananda used only in relation to the experience, the joy one feels when you reach this experience level. That's why, and after using these three terms, as if you're defining Brahman, Vedantis will tell you Vedanta, the Brahman cannot be defined. Then why these words are used? These are only three terms by which you can try to connect with that supreme reality, which actually cannot be connected through words, only through experience. So this is an important thing to remember.
Thank you, Maharaj, and thank you, David. Shay and Mark's hands went up at pretty much the same time, but from Shay's position on my screen, I think he was first. So please go ahead, Shay.
Hello, thank you, Maharaj. My question is about philosophy and the goal of Vedanta. You mentioned that philosophy is the search for truth. And to me, it feels like the ultimate goal of Vedanta is not actually the search for truth, it is this moksha, it is this liberation. And that maybe these philosophical debates are not as important as our sort of path towards liberation. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, philosophy is not needed for liberation. The philosophy is needed because right now our mind is not focused on the highest spiritual reality. Our mind is full of ideas other than spiritual ideas. So the first principle is to study something. Vedanta itself tells you, you should first of all listen. Use your own reasoning power and also develop the necessary ethical moral qualities. Samadhi, Sarka, Sambhati, the 6 important qualifications. Without that, it is not possible. Very often, conflicts are always due to one problem. Our mind is not ready for what we are intellectually trying to analyze. This is important thing. Our mind is not always ready. I found this always among many spiritual seekers. They should, whenever they get time, when they try to connect with something, they should connect with these things and think over this. So constant thought of some higher spiritual principles will have a cleaning effect. They'll cleanse our mind of all negativities. That's a discipline. Without that, our mind will not be ready. You find that if you read if you want to read a good book, your mind will revolt, won't even permit you to do that. That's because our mind is not ready for it. So the first thing to do is to somehow connect our mind with some higher ideas. I can give many examples. You see, people get aged biologically. Biological age doesn't make a person wise. It's an important thing. Biological age sometimes creates the opposite direction. It makes person desperate and depressed. So, and on the other hand, you find very young people, relatively young people. They're happy, they have no conflict. So it's very important for us to understand that spirituality is not something, it's not a concept. It has to happen in our own emotional world. We often interpret spirituality as a concept. I'm Brahman. Oh, all right. No, I did not know I'm Brahman. No, I understand I'm Brahman. Oh, fine. The problem solved. It doesn't happen like that. Anyone can say that he is Brahman. And emotionally live in a very, very worldly, empirical world. Emotions are not clean. Thoughts are not clean. Attitudes are not clean. Plenty of conflicts, plenty of problems, plenty of depression, despair. Still, I'm Brahman. So this frequently happens. Such people should start praying instead of philosophy. They can study philosophy, but they should do a lot of prayer, do a lot of karma yoga, because karma yoga and prayers will generate some spiritual qualities. And slowly you find our mind is ready for philosophy. They can study philosophy, but they should know that the study of philosophy is only an intellectual exercise, not a bad exercise, better than some other exercise. If you do something positive, feeding our mind with great ideas, that's not bad. It's good. Because otherwise mind will go after something unpleasant. So at least to keep the mind engaged, you can study higher thoughts. You can read Emerson even. You can read Thoreau. You can read Hitman. You can, instead of reading something which I don't want to mention, but people do that. So the point is, and along with that, they should practice prayer. They should practice karma yoga. And they should try to practice this volunteering work without any selfish motive and so on. Then you know what happens? Slowly, our mind will move away from the result-oriented, from the business-oriented, from the utilitarian way of life. We will start thinking of something not in terms of money and wealth. And then only we will be able to read these books. So the main problem is we misunderstand Vedanta to be an intellectual concept. Vedanta is a concept that should be studied. That's an important thing. But when you study that, you should know that it is not an intellectual concept. You may ask the question, why should I study? If you don't study Vedanta, you'll be studying something else. If we don't connect our mind to something noble, our mind will automatically go in search of something which it wants to enjoy. That may be toxic poison. That way, Sravanam is the first discipline for everyone. If suppose a person doesn't like higher philosophy, no problem. We can listen to higher music, devotional music. Some wonderful thing that also will have a purifying effect on the mind. Vedanta is not for everyone. Even Sri Ramakrishna did not teach the Advaita Vedanta to some of his own monastic disciples. He asked them to specialize, focus on bhakti, devotion. There were some of our monks in Belum at that time, they mostly did selfless work. Swami Premananda, he was like a mother who greeted all people coming there. There were others, Swami Turiyananda was a great Advaita who came to San Francisco. Swami Tirunadidanda was a man of action. Swami Brahmanandaji was always in a bhakti, in the highest state. Vivekananda was an Advaiti. So you can find. So like that, you find depending upon our own temperament, one can take any path to moksha. Bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, everything. Here we are discussing a profound philosophical concept in Vedantic tradition. That's all. This may not be the path for everyone, but studying this may also be beneficial because at least mind is connected to something. That is, when our mind is fed with a lot of good food, a lot of conflicts will go away. We'll be thinking of these higher things. So you are right. Philosophy is not at all indispensable for moksha or liberation. No, not at all. There was one Swami in our own tradition, Swami Adbhutananda, was an enlightened soul. He didn't study all of these books. But when somebody read out this, he could understand everything. Because pure devotion took him to a state of mental purity. He could at one hearing understand all this. So you are right. Philosophy is not necessary for spiritual enlightenment. That's true. So philosophy is not an object, is not an obstacle either. That's important. Even
Thank you, Mark.
Shankaracharya did not want everyone to follow his path. He started temples, he wrote devotional hymns, he introduced puja, worship practices. So you do that. That's true.
Shay, I'm curious if there's any follow-up question from you.
Well, I have many follow-up questions, but it's only a short time together. My question would be, so
if there is somebody else with question,
yes,
because
that's fair. Yes, someone else can ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. There were compliments on the chat for that question. Mark Goodrich, your hand was next, followed by Ranjit.
Pranam, Swamiji. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about the concept of asat in relationship to our practical life experiences, things such as losing our wealth, sickness, jobs, relationships. And I've heard you talk about this before, that, you know, there's things that happen, but they're not really like eternal. They're not going to last forever. But at the time that they happen, they seem like they make us unhappy, and they seem like there's no way out. Could you talk about asat in the relationship to, you know, our practical everyday lives?
Yeah, you know, first of all, if we can keep in our mind the fact that everything in this world is impermanent. Everything in this world is impermanent. It's the essence of asat here, unreal here. That can help us while dealing with problems. Because frequently we attribute permanence to problems and lose sleep. It doesn't mean that we should be insensitive or inactive or indifferent. But we frequently attribute permanence to difficult situations, and we forget that these difficult situations will change. They will change. They will get back to the previous conditions. So that's a moment when Advaita, this fact can be used. A devotee may use, well, this is what God gives me. The same effect you find for a devotee. That's true. If we are following the path of bhakti or devotion, you may think this is what is God's will. The effect is the same. That's true. So the idea that all the problems we are facing are of a permanent nature, that can be the cause of a lot of problems in the world. If we can remind ourselves that they are not of a permanent nature. Again, it should not make us inactive, but the tendency to forget the essentially impermanent nature of empirical experiences, that can be a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Ranjit, please.
Namaste, Swamiji. So I have a related question. So in a simple, if you take a simple definition of mithya, just like as you said, it could be like anything that is transient can be called as mithya, which is not permanent, and Brahman is something which is not transient. I don't know what is the opposite word, maybe permanent. So
Yeah,
if that is the simple, if one take that as a simple definition, and if it is true, and does Shankara argue that Brahman is indeed permanent? I mean, that Shunyavada, probably that's what there came, but I didn't fully understand that part, that how to argue that Brahman is indeed permanent, or
this mithyatvam has been defined by 4 scholars. One of them gave 2 definitions. That's why 5 definitions. One is found in Padmapada's Panchapadika, and the second and third are found in Panchapadika Vivarana Prakasha Medi. The fourth one is found in Chitsuga Tattwapratipika, and the fifth one is called, it is found in Ananda Bodha's Nyaya Deepavali. The important definitions. One definition, the first one that is attributed to Padmapada is Sadasatta Anadhikaranatumva Mithyatva means. You see, it is neither, actually, it is neither real nor unreal in the absolute sense, you know. See, Maya is not real in the absolute sense because the waves go away. The shape of the pot also can change. The golden ring can become some other golden bangles. Nama and Rupa. It's all together. They can change. So another one important definition is that is in Nyaya Deepavali is Sat Viviktatum, that which is distinct and different from the absolute reality. That is also Mithya. Jnana Nivattitum, that is found in Panchapadika Vivarana Prakasharmedi, means that which disappears when you get enlightenment. So, actually, in reality, I tell you, the real experience of the Mithyatum or the impermanent nature of empirical experience. The real experience comes only when you get the ultimate Advaitic spiritual enlightenment. And now there are 2 stages. One stage is you go on practicing, you reach the Samadhi, which is again a long journey. The other one, as Sri Ramakrishna says, keep Advaita in your pocket. What does it mean? Sri Ramakrishna did not ask you to keep Advaita and flaunt on your hands like a flag. Keep in your pocket. What is the meaning of putting in your pocket? You may do everything that's good in this world to help a person, or you may work hard with all sincerity to achieve success. Now you find at some point the maths don't tally, the logic doesn't work. The logic of mathematics and logic of science doesn't operate in real life. In real life, you may help a person, do everything for him. He may be your worst enemy. So 2 + 2 is 4. That logic doesn't operate here. If that logic operated, the person whom you help should be your best friend. Total stranger can be your friend, and the person whom you have done everything can be your worst enemy. So where is logic? So this that's why, you know, one great commentator of Christian statement in Shankaracharya's, you know, it is called Anirvachaniya. That is the non-definability of the great imponderable, so to speak. The great unknown, the great imponderable. Because it is something so real, but you find it happening all around you, in your own life, everywhere. No one can deny this. At the same time, the logic of mathematics doesn't work here. It's just the opposite of mathematical logic. So how do you explain this? So it is non-definable. That is why Panchapadika's definition of Sadasatta Anadhikarana is called Anivachiniyati, also Anivachiniyatum. That's also Padmapada's definition. Non-definability, or maybe in English language, in the kind of old English, bombastic English language, the great imponderable. What is Bobby's opinion of Bobby?
A delightfully poetic way of putting it. It's a delightfully poetic way of putting it, the great imponderable.
Yeah.
A little pretentious, but English is colorful that way. And it's fine, it's true.
The great imponderable may not be very colloquial expression, especially in America.
No,
It comes across the other side of the Atlantic.
it appeals to me very much.
Yeah. So it's a fact. In fact, this is something that we find operating in life. That's why, and in fact, Anivachaniya Khyadis in the Vedantic dialectics comes, but it's a different subject, Brahma Sutra interpretation. What I mean to say, the non-definability, so this non-definability, indescribability of this world, that's the best proof of mithya. That's an important thing to remember. Swami Vivekananda, in his, he gives a series of definitions, mostly taken from Shankaracharya's own Viveka Chudamani. Sannapya sannapi bhayatmigano bhinnapya bhitnapi bhayatmi. Like that, neither real nor unreal, like that, neither, like that, Swamiji, neither with parts nor with the whole, and so on. So Swamiji then he says, he gives some example in life that a mother takes care of her son with all affection and love. The son behaves differently. So that Swamiji says this is Maya. That's how he concludes. And in another context, Vivekananda defines that Maya is a statement of fact. Maya is a statement of fact. Now, really, if it is a fact, you don't make a statement about it. But very often we don't realize it. That's why you have to make a statement. What is obvious, you don't make a statement. You don't deny either. But very often, one may misunderstand and may think that this pot is something absolutely real. It has got an independent status, independent of clay. You have to tell him, no, it's only clay only. Vajarampanam vikaro namadheyam muttegateva sati. You find in Chandogya Upanishad. So it is this idea, this asat idea, especially in this particular mantra, This mantra is very important, very significant. That's why I chose this. The whole Gita Bhasha is very important. But I chose this one because philosophically, it says, in fact, there are many such verses in the second chapter itself. It's called a Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya here means jnana. The word Sankhya is used in the second chapter in the sense of jnana. It's a chapter dealing with the ultimate knowledge. So, okay, thank you then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit. Sriram, you're on.
When you explain what is Maya, I was reminded of a phrase I heard, Yama Sa Maya. Can you comment on that?
If you can slow down your conversation, that may be very helpful, perhaps.
So I heard the definition of Maya, Yama Sa Maya.
Oh, yeah, correct. That is true. So, that is really doesn't exist. Again, I mentioned earlier, if it really doesn't exist, you don't have to make a statement. So whatever is obvious, we don't deny. We look foolish if we deny, but we don't need to make a statement. So in fact, Shankaracharya's own statement is there. Prasaktasya ko nishedha prasaktasya ka prastava. Aprasaktasya ko nishedha aprasaktasya ko prastava. What it means, what is obviously this, you don't make a statement, you don't deny it. You don't make something else about it. So like that, ya ma, ya is a pronoun in the feminine gender, strilinga, ya stri, ya kumari, like that, ya devi, sarvabhuteshu, all these we can find. Ma is actually even ma is used with certain senses, certain tenses in Sanskrit. It has got negative meaning. Ma gacchadu, don't come here. Ma gacchadu, don't go there. Like that. So Maya, Maya is a combination of these two words, ya and ma. You don't use a pronoun unless there is something you are referring to. So there is something. At the same time, it is not absolutely real. It is changing. So that's what ma is used, negation. So both affirmation and negation coming together, that is Maya.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So thank you. I think we had a very, very wonderful
Maharaj,
discussion.
may I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
There are none on YouTube. It's just about the historical timeline. You mentioned some of the schools of philosophy debating post-Shankara. And
Oh, yeah.
it's my impression that kicked up around the 12th century, that for the first period of time following Shankara, that things were debated, but not as ferociously as they were some years later. Is that correct?
That's true. So the first phase in during the post-Shankarite period of Advaita philosophy is the time of Shankaracharya's own disciples. So Padmapada wrote Panchapadika, and his own disciple wrote Panchapadika Vivarana later. Vajaspati, who was a contemporary of Shankaracharya, more or less wrote Pamati. Sureshwara was a disciple. He wrote Brihadaranya Upanishad, Bhashya-Vartikam, and so on. So the point is, that's one period. The second period was during the time of Ramanuja and little later after Madhva. So these two great philosophers and saints representing a different view of Vedanta. They're also Vedantins. So Ramanujacharya, he established Visishtadvaita philosophy. And in a way, it is not it's not the polar opposite of Advaita. Ramanuja system includes one aspect of Advaita, but the whole, that's called Visishta Advaita is called. Chit Ajit Visishtam, that means. So absolute reality qualified by Chit, which is Chaitanya, and Achit, which is Jagat. So Jiva, which is so Ishvara qualified, modified by Jiva, who is Chaitanya, and Jagat, which is Jada. This is Ramanuja. Ramanuja also partly accepts Advaita. That's what he called Visishta Advaita. Then Madhva came, which is the polar opposite of Advaita. So during this time, of course, especially during the time of Ramanuja's period, Ramanuja's great disciple and his follower was Venkatanatha, is called Vedanta Desika, who is the commentator of Ramanuja's great philosophical commentaries like this, Sribhasham and so on. So that is one period. But the period of dialectical warfare between Advaitins and another school of philosophy, Dvaitins, it started after Madhvacharya's entry. Madhvacharya was diametrically opposite or opposed to Advaita. And he also was not so much bothered about the importance of Vedas. So he gave a lot of importance to Mahabharata and many other scriptures. In fact, something very interesting in Advaita is Shankaracharya said that whenever there is a difference with regard to some, let's say, some conflict with regard to some ideas in the Vedic Upanishads and then the Smrtis, which are just constitutions, books of codes, Hindu codes, and also Puranas, mythological books, then we should give primary importance to Srutis or Vedas or Upanishads, then only Smrtis, and last importance only to Puranas. But according to Madhvacharya, Puranas themselves are very important. Vishnu Purana and all was very important according to Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya's system was a bit realistic, much more realistic, more earthly in that sense. But Madhva tradition produced some outstanding dialecticians who challenged Advaitins. Now you have to remember, I should make it very clear. This dialectical warfare was a very pleasant, very friendly exchange of ideas. It doesn't have anything in common with the conflicts that happen in Europe between the Protestants and the Catholic Church, between the Calvinisms and others, because very often when people listen to these, they may get away with the impression that Shankaracharya's followers and Ramanuja followers, Madhva were fighting. Not at all. In fact, Madhusudana Saraswati teacher was, teacher was in Madhva following Benares. He was writing, he was listening to Madhvacharya's books from his teacher, and that evening he wrote a refutation of that. That is Advaita Siddhi. You find the greatest dialectical masterpiece that came during the post-Shankarite period. Advaita Siddhi was written by a student who went on refuting his own teacher's views. So in Benares, they used to study, they used to live with gurus. They go about begging, 16th century, early 16th century. They used to go about begging Annakshatras, eating food and studying scriptures. So Madhusudana Saraswati's own teacher was a Dvaitin, Madhvacharya's follower, who thought that Madhusudana is a brilliant man. So he'll be his next evangelist who take up the cause of Dvaita or dualism. What happened was Madhusudana listened to his teacher's interpretation of Madhvacharya's views for years and years and years. And every day he wrote his refutation. And as a Guru Dakshina, Madhusudana presented him with a copy of Advaita Siddhi. And his Guru had the greatness to bless him. This is something you have to keep in mind. His Guru had the magnanimity to bless him. So this is something very important because we have a lot of Western listeners and very happy about it. So I want to point out this with all humility, that there was absolutely no physical conflict or anything. Very often, every day they used to have long discussions, and then they used to share the food and all that, everybody, teachers and students. So this is a very important thing. Ramanuja's own Guru was an Advaitin. Madhvacharya's Guru was an Advaitin. So remember this. So you should not imagine that these are very similar to the highly tense situation that prevailed in Europe when Martin Luther wrote his thesis, 90 thesis, and hang on the church doors. Nothing of the kind, or Calvin or other, rebellious church dissidents started challenging the supremacy Catholic Church. Nothing of the kind. Just a friendly dialectical discussion. You can very easily, if you want one example, I can say, go to Brihadaranyaka and a powerful, muscular lady enters the assembly of the greatest scholars of those times, Janaka's court, Gargi. And she challenges all the great philosophers. And she managed to defeat most of them, except Yajnavalkya. And then afterwards, both were honored by the king and left the place. This is an important thing to remember. Yeah.
Very, very beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace.
Pranam.
Yeah, namaskar.